Yo, what's going on guys? Jared here, back again with another video, and this is going to be a deck profile for Mimighoul. Obviously, the TCG exclusive archetypes that we have been getting in recent history have been not so great, and like with Mimighoul, it was okay in the beginning, and again, it was one of those decks that had potential, and it was just if the last set of support actually was good. Thankfully, finally, Konami actually delivered, thank you, on a deck that gives good support to a TCG exclusive archetype. I actually think this deck is pretty decent. After playing against it a couple of times, I played against it with Yubel, and the deck actually was able to hold its own. Now, granted, Yubel was still winning, but it did not feel like something like B Trooper when we first got it. It didn't feel something as bad as, oh my god, I'm blanking on their names. The ones where if you have lower life points, I'm completely forgetting right now. But you know what I mean. Overall, the TCG exclusive archetypes have been in a pretty bad place. Oh, Testino is another one that just fell flat in its face. The TCG exclusive archetypes have been not so great in recent memory, and this one is a pleasant surprise with both one-card combos, and if you're able to make a rank 1, that in itself is also a nice little setup that you can do for at least a couple interruptions on your opponent's turn minimally. So I want to go over the deck, go over the cards, and just talk about it a little bit, and why I'm so happy that these cards are finally delivering on a deck that feels like it might be able to shake up the meta just a little bit. So again, if you guys enjoy, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments so that anyone who watches this video is able to, after watching or during watching, can look at the comments section and see any improvements or different ideas or different ways you can play it down below. So again, I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the deck profile. Okay guys, so this is my current Mimighoul deck. As you can see, it's a lot going on here. There's a lot of new cards, and I'm playing pretty much all of them. So I want to go over them one by one when we get to them, but I'll go over the card by card, and then we kind of talk about it just a little bit. So in the top row and the first two cards of the second row, I have cards that can be considered one-card-ish plays. Again, Magnemite is kind of like the exception here. Like, you have to drop it on your opponent's turn, then search for the dragon, and then that makes it a one-card play. But yeah, mainly dragon is the best one-card play in this deck. But yeah. Anyway, let's just go to the card by card, and then we'll just talk about it a little bit more. So we have 3 copies of Mimighoul Maker, 3 copies of Mimighoul Dragon, 3 copies of Dungeon, 1 Terraforming, 1 1-for-1, 1 Magnemite, 2 copies of Archfiend. We play 1 copy of Mimighoul Armor. So this is one of the first new cards that we got. Again, they all have the effects where if they're flip face up, they do something and give themselves back to the opponent, aka you, the original owner. And then, or if they're in your hand, you can special summon them to your opponent's side of the field, face down defense position, or for the newer ones at least, which Armor and Fairy and Slime are, you can, if they meet a certain condition, you can special summon to your own field face up. So you can use them for certain types of material. So just very quickly, Armor, if it's in your hand and your opponent controls a monster, you can special it to your field. Fairy, if you have a Mimighoul on your side of the field, you can special summon it to your field. And then Slime, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon it to your field face up. Again, they all have little different requirements. Obviously, Fairy is the most generic, but Armor is also pretty good because you are able to just give your opponent a Mimighoul monster, and then you can just special summon this card out from your hand for free. If you want to bump this card up, it is perfectly fine. It just has one of the weaker flip effects of it being Mimighoul monsters can't be destroyed by battle. The Fairy being you cannot activate the effects of special summon monsters from the hand. So it's like it's kind of like a floodgatey thing for your opponent, and I'm not that big of a fan of it. There is a couple of things that this hits, of course, things like the Abel Star, especially going into the next format, is very, very good. Things like Poplar, etc., etc. This can do something. I don't think it's completely worthless, but this is really main in here for it to be able to special summon it from the hand so you can make rank 1s. Slime, definitely out of the new ones, have the best flip effect to be able to special summon a Mimighoul from your deck to either side of the field. I think that's really, really awesome. Gives you a lot of versatility in that too. So I only have 2 copies of this one because the flip effect's good, but the hand effect's like probably the worst one, the special summon. Armor being the worst flip effect. I didn't want too many. I just had this in here as a searchable extender mostly. 1 copy of Master, because now Master is very searchable via one of the Exceed monsters, so you can just get it from anywhere. You really don't need to play more than 1 Master, in my opinion. 2 copies of Mimighoul Crossroads. This is a new card I want to read over very quickly. Target 1 face-down monster your opponent controls. They choose one of the effects for you to apply. Change it to face-up attack or defense position, aka trigger its flip effect, or send it to the graveyard, and then its owner draws 2 cards. So this is either a quote-unquote Pot of Greed, or you are able to trigger one of your Mimighoul flip effects. You can banish it from the graveyard to add a Mimighoul Crossroads from your deck to your hand. So that's why I'm playing 2, just so you activate 1, you can just search the other one immediately. But it's kind of cool. The only thing in this deck that I don't really like is that there's a lot of RNG, and you are able to let your opponent pick the effects that you use. And this card is the example of where you activate it. You might want something to happen, like you might want that Mimighoul to flip, but instead they send it to the graveyard for you to draw to. I'm personally not a fan of that. I like being in control of the plays that I make, and that also applies to Mimighoul Maker, where it's completely random who gets which one, and it really bothers me because usually Archfiend being so strong, especially with Slime, you get a lot of bodies for free, and the fact that if you're not guaranteed to put where the cards you want to be, obviously different scenarios are going to come up depending on the rest of your hand, but I like Maker being a 1-card combo is very beneficial if you knew exactly which card you were getting, if that makes sense. But moving forward, we play 2 copies of Room. I don't want to play 3 of this card because it is still a trap card at the end of the day, and it's searchable, so I don't think you need to play more than 2 of this card. But it is really strong. As a actual Mimighoul card, this is like Big Welcome Labyrinth almost, I feel like. This card is so good. And then, of course, we have our non-engine. 3 Ash, 3 Valor, 3 Nib, 3 Ferraros, 3 Imperm, and 1 copy of Called By. For the extra deck, we have 2 more new cards that we have to go over. A Giant Mimighoul being the first one. This is the less good one, in my opinion, because you're going to be making this the least, but it's still a really good card. It's a time card, and you're also able to blow up boards with this card. So, very quickly, again, generic 2 level 1 monsters. Your non-Exceed Mimighoul monsters can attack directly while your opponent controls a face-down monster, which also means you're able to just push through things. So if your opponent has like an annoying Yubel on the field for no Nightmare Pain, just Yubel, you give them a Mimighoul and you have this on the field, you can now just attack directly and just completely bypass that Yubel being there. I think that's really awesome. If this card is Exceed Summon, you can add a Mimighoul card from your deck to your hand. Of course, rank 1 generic searching is always good. You can detach 1 material from this card, then target cards on the field up to the number of face-down monsters your opponent controls, destroy them, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. Again, this is a very good, main thing is you can use this in time, sadly. Again, I don't like engine time cards, it's really annoying. Realistically, this burn effect just didn't even have to be here, but it is. Secondly, this is almost something like Access Code, but it targets just having nice destruction in the archetype, because it's something that lacks in the main deck other than Dragon. I feel like is destruction, so being able to just on your own turn, being able to slap and Exceed on the field, pop some stuff, and then especially threaten Zeus after, is very powerful, on top of getting a search with it too. Next up is my favorite Exceed monster that is coming out for this deck is Mimighoul Throne. 2 level 1 Mimighoul monsters. So remember, this is not generic, this is specifically you have to use Mimighouls for this, but the payoff is so worth it. So you can detach 1 material from this card, special summon 1 Mimighoul Master from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Again, so wherever the master is, you are able to just summon it directly from your deck, graveyard, hand. It doesn't matter. It's always live. You can always use Throne. As long as your master doesn't get banished, and luckily it's Earth, so it's going to be pretty difficult because usually things get banished from Bestials. This is an Earth monster, so Bestials can't even touch it. So I think the master is going to be sticking around for the majority of the game. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target 1 Mimighoul Master you control, equip this card to it as an equip spell that gives it 1,000 attack, then you can return cards from the field to the hand up to the number of materials this card had. You can only use 1 Mimighoul Throne effect per turn, and only once that turn. So on your turn, obviously, you summon it, summon out a master from your deck after detaching, and then you can, on your opponent's turn, be able to detach and then equip the Throne to the master and then bounce a card on the field. Or if you already have master, you can just bounce 2 cards. But the nice thing is that when you summon master, you are also, don't forget, you're triggering master at the same time, which then nets you a search on top of that. So both of these cards resolving on summon net you a lot of value, because this searches any Mimighoul card too. So this can add you the traps, this can add room, this can add dungeon, and dungeon being a floodgate is also just like huge. But anyway, moving forward, we have 1 copy of Zeus, 1 copy of Typhon, 1 copy of Downerd, 1 Anima, 1 SP, 1 IP, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Access Code. And lastly, I wanted to go over something that this specific build, this does not fit in, but I think it's something that is possibly worth considering, which is actually Shaddoll Construct, which is the Link monster, and then 1 Shaddoll Winda. That's because if you play Dark monsters, maybe you play heavier Bestial count, you're actually able to make this with 2 of the Mimighoul monsters because they are all flip monsters, and again, she requires 2 flips. And then during your main phase, you can fusion summon a Shaddoll fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field. So if you have like a Bestial in your hand, or you have a Bestial on the field, anything like that, you are able to just like make a Floodgate monster, which I think is actually pretty strong, especially in a deck where we have Dungeon to stop normal summons as well. So if you have Dungeon up, they have a guy, and then you have Winda, they only get 1 special summon. They cannot normal summon. They can't special summon anymore. They get 1 summon. That is crazy. I don't know. I think it's something worth exploring. I have it in the deck right now, especially because this deck does not care about the extra deck too much. It's really not that dependent on it, which I like a lot about it. So I think we need more decks that don't depend on the extra deck as much as some of the more recent decks and strategies. So, that is the main and the extra deck right now. Let me know what you guys think about this little tech. I haven't seen a lot of people doing this, but I think it's something that's worth considering. Going into the side deck is just extra stuff you can play. Again, this deck can be a shifter deck if you want it to be, but the graveyard is actually pretty important. So I don't want to play this card, but again, it doesn't hurt. The shifter doesn't hurt this deck as much as it hurts other decks. That's like the main thing. You can play Spheres because the Bestials and then the Dragon, and then you can also link the Bestials and the Dragon to go into Spheres. On your opponent's turn, you can just get another Dragon to be able to trigger it again to add, so you get like multiple Dragon procs off of Spheres, which I think is pretty cool. Again, Weirlisk if you want to go for easier Zeus finds. I don't think you need it. There's also a Snake Eye like hybrid deck that you can play. Not a big fan of it. I don't like it. I think you're just doing too much. I think the actual Mimighoul cards themselves are just good enough. It's just not necessary. So I think the Snake Eyes are just better in their own strategy rather than trying to mix it with Mimighoul. And then we have one more new card, which is Mimighoul Charm, and this is actually the sneak preview promo card, which I don't know why this is the promo card. This is just, it was an odd choice to me. Again, it's a cute artwork, but it doesn't do it for me. So Mimighoul Charm, very quickly, is a continuous spell. Once per chain during your main phase, if a Mimighoul monster your opponent controls is flipped face up, you can randomly choose one face down card in your opponent's extra deck, and if it's a monster, you can special summon. If it's a monster that can be special summon it to your field, but it cannot activate its effects this turn. If it wasn't, it could be special summon, banish that card. So you can only use its effect twice per turn. So my biggest issue with this card is that it's random, and if this was like, even if this card was something in the aspect of Nightmare Unicorn, I still don't think this card would be that good. I still probably wouldn't play this card. This is a very mediocre card at best to me. You're only flipping up maybe one on your own turn. It's very difficult. And then, like on your opponent's turn, you're flipping up two. And then other than that, this is just sitting here generating 0 value. Yeah, I feel like this card has to resolve like 6 times before this like even feels an impact in like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And I feel like at that point I would rather just, for 3 turns to go by, I'd rather just have this be a different card. So that's why it's not in here. And then I'm also not playing Cerberus because I think he's just one of the worst ones that we've gotten now that we have more Mimighouls themselves, and of course we have extras of the other ones. So that is it for my actual deck. Again, I like that slime special summons from deck, and like when I noticed when I was playing against this deck gets a lot of bodies. Very quickly, and the interrupts are very layered. You have a trap card in the back row, you have the Maker in the graveyard, you have the Throne and the Master on the field, and then like the Floodgatey effect with Dungeon, and then God forbid you're sitting on a Dragon on your side of the field, or if you like they already ripped the card from Archfiend, or especially if you flip with Archfiend and they draw into a hand trap, that's like super unfortunate, something like Veil or Neighbor Ash. Yeah, like there's just a lot of variables that can go on in this deck, and then Room being able to special summon and be a Book of Moon is insane. This is like one of the craziest trap cards I think for an archetype. Again, I really do like compare this to something the Big Welcome Labyrinth, where you're special summoning a guy from your deck and then doing a bonus effect on top of that. Big Welcome Labyrinth bouncing a card, this booking a monster on the field, and then they both have graveyard effects. While Big Welcome is an interruption in the graveyard, being able to bounce back your own cards to dodge hand traps, I think is super relevant. Or even being able to trigger effects again, something like maybe Dragon if you want to bounce it back and summon it again, get more searches, and then keep your engine flowing. I think all of those things are very, very worth it. So overall, I actually think Mimighoul is in a very, very good place moving forward. I don't think it's broken. Again, this is just falling into like that everything else category, like it's not Azamina, it's not Yubel, it's just kind of like floating in all the other decks, which is fine. It's a fine place to be. That's where like healthy Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like is. And yeah, I just feel like that's where this deck falls. And it's very, very, one, it's fun. It feels very different than a lot of the decks that are out right now. So it's pretty cool being able to integrate foot monsters again into modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So again, let me know what you guys think about Mimighoul, especially coming out, of course, after Rage of the Abyss. Let me know what other decks you want to see out of Rage of Abyss. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And any suggestions, again, please leave down below. And please subscribe if you enjoyed. So until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.